Hi, hello, welcome to the podcast. It's directly to you. It's episode 229. This is the Redirect Podcast. I'm AJ, I'm of Redirect. I'm joined by Parker, also of Redirect. Parker, I swear he's here. There we go. And we're collectively joined by Mark. He has a podcast. It's 11 and a half minutes. He talks about varying video game things. Well, you describe it, man. You have a
sure.
word. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
go for it.
Well, the podcast is 11 and a half minutes to talk about video games, and it is basically that. For the most part, most of the time it goes over 11 and a half minutes. But yeah, it's kind of topical. Once every 2 weeks and just kind of keep them rolling. I've had y'all both on, so
it's true. I was about to say that we've both been on the podcast. So
it's actually AJ's is the only one that was exactly 11 and a half minutes long. So you've got that honor.
Nice. Big W.
Beautiful.
That's an easy on ramp. So if you like this show, check out Mark's show. We've been on it. That's a good testing. It'd be like, okay, yeah. And, obviously he's going to be on this podcast, so you'll know if you like him. But anyway, housekeeping for here. You go to youtube.com/watchredirect or twitch.tv/watchredirect and give him $4.99. Or if you're on Twitch specifically, you have an Amazon Prime account, link it to your Twitch account. You get a free Prime subscription every month. All you got to do is remember to renew it. And Jeffy B is like, yo, you want $4.99 on the house? And then you're like, yeah. And then you get a free subscription. And it's in exchange for that, you get emotes, you get loyalty badges, you get free Switch keys from time to time, you get access to our supporters on Discord. We record this show every single week, usually at like 9 p.m. Eastern time. Sometimes a little later than that. But also, you can check out our Patreon, and you get other cool stuff there for varying prices. Just pick your poison,
I just put a thing up literally like 75 seconds ago.
Check that out.
So.
Also, we have plans to change it up a little bit and add more. So join whenever is right for you. But for today, we're talking about things and stuff, and we're starting with the dreaded word, at least for me on this show, insiders.
It's true. Yeah, this is here. I'll introduce the thing, but also introducing Mark. You already introduced Mark, but so Mark put out an episode yesterday of his podcast. Yesterday for us when we're recording, Wednesday of this past week.
Yep.
And he's been tracking for a year various leakers, insiders, and their leaks, and then reported back on like how reliable they are.
Yeah.
And I thought that was just a wonderful time to find out about and listen to his podcast and hear him talk about. So go check that out for some extra nitty gritty. Like we'll be touching on some of it here, but go check that out because it was just a fun time to listen to. But I was like, let's talk more about that. So Mark is on for exactly that reason. So yeah, I don't know, Mark, you want to talk more about kind of the idea behind it, starting into it, and then like I think we'll talk about just leaks in general, how we feel about the thing as a whole, etc.
Yes. Yeah. And that will kind of, as I'm thinking through it and processing and kind of explaining it, that will kind of bleed into the next topic too, is like I started out just thinking of like early 2022. I follow a few of these people and I kind of want to figure out, like, I don't really know. It just feels like they're more wrong than right. And I want to figure out is like, how true is that? Like how reliable are they? Because I wanted to figure out which ones were worth actually listening to. And kind of over the year, I found out that, like, in one sense, none of them are worth listening to, because I think my whole perspective on leaks just really plummeted through the year. And that also being said, and I'm happy to spoil some of the episode too, there are like a good collection of them are pretty reliable. There's also a collection that just aren't. And kind of in summary too, a lot of them I tracked both kind of the accuracy and reliability, but also tracked the audacity. So like how specific they got, like how much can this be beyond of like, you just guessed that there's a direct in June, versus like you guessed that there's direct in June and you knew it would have these games, or like you knew that Fire Emblem was coming out and that there was going to be specifically a red and blue haired protagonist. Like how specific can you get? On the audacity side, they're just really like no one was really all that audacious. And that kind of like soured me on the whole idea itself too. It's like, I don't know if this information's all that useful, and I don't know if it's all that special, but there's still something about like I can't figure out is like I still want to know it. I don't know why I want to know it when really it doesn't serve anything for me.
It's super interesting just overall. And it's funny too, thinking back about like a bunch of years ago, I had two separate thoughts. I'm splicing them together. So sorry about that. Yeah. Here's this thought is that there's sometimes that I'll make predictions before Nintendo Direct or something like that. I just don't do this anymore. Barely at all, ever. But there's definitely been a couple of times where even I, as someone who knows literally nothing, like I've heard probably 2 behind the scenes bits of information ever. And they weren't big ones. So, that's that. But there's definitely been times where I've made predictions about certain things. And there's been a couple times I've been tempted to even frame them in a way that like makes it sound like, was that a leak? Like, did Parker know something if it happens to turn out right? But like, if it doesn't, like, whatever, no big deal. So on the like audacity kind of side, like I think it factors into that you were talking about, like just how audacious some of these claims are. And, because it's one thing. Yeah, I mean, with the Emily Rogers, and she obviously knew Fire Emblem Engage was just exactly what it was.
Right.
There's plenty of other examples of that kind of a thing where someone's like, super weird, but this is this information. But like, it's just so easy, and like so many people can guess so many things, and that like anybody can kind of seem like a leaker. And then it's just a question of like, how do you double down on that, if at all? It just gets into a weird spot. So like, especially with, you talked about Nate the Hate, and he's one that has a lower audacity number on here. And there's times where he's been pretty specific about stuff, but also, I wonder sometimes if like the sources that he has are like third party sources, or like there's a couple steps there or something, to where pretty often it feels like things that he's said are things that feel reasonable, and like he's pretty high on the reliability list, but also things that like plans change seem to be something that happens to him fairly often.
Yes.
So like that kind of thing, where it's like, if you're hearing rumors or inside information kind of a thing, then like you're probably not going to be super forthcoming with like audacious claims and stuff. So I don't know. Yeah, it's just interesting.
And one thing too, I want to like kind of make sure I had the right tone in as I was doing it, is that I didn't want to go into this trying to figure out who was lying and who isn't. So I used the term like reliability, and kind of, and you I use the word claim instead of leak, because even thinking of just how like if things change internally, you're still unreliable, even if you have like legitimate insider information. Or also, it's like, for example, Samus Hunter, who's the kind of infamous Twitter account, like she was surprisingly reliable, but also not very audacious. So like she could have just been really good at guessing, and that like, even if you're just good at guessing, like that's still like, you're still getting it right. You're still reliable. So I think that was like an important distinction that I just wanted to make too.
Yeah.
Right. Me personally, I hate all of it. Like even if they're right, it's like it doesn't do anything for me. All it does is rile up the people on the internet, the worst people on the internet in these conversations. And we're waiting anyway. We're not going to see the game. All we know is that it may or may not exist until it exists. And like, obviously it's fun to talk about stuff that's like, oh, what if this happened, and blah blah blah, and all that stuff, right? But to put this spin on it where it's like if I get this right, I'm gonna be a celebrity. Like everybody's gonna turn to me whenever they're like, when's the next Nintendo Direct? What are they working on next? Blah blah blah. And if I get it wrong, the internet's gonna be toxic and be and like every time you say literally anything, you're just automatically wrong because the last thing that you said was not right. And it's just like a weird dynamic because like, again, I don't think they do anything, even if they were always right. That doesn't make the game any better. It doesn't give us the game any sooner. It just leaves us in this weird limbo. And
like sometimes
Martha,
too, it just means that you're like, then when there was a point, I feel like it was the September 2021 one Direct. Yeah. Where in that one, there was a 3D Kirby, which had been rumored for a while. There was N64 games, which had been rumored / speculated for a while. There were a couple of, like, Bayonetta 3 showed up again, like just a couple of things where it felt like, okay, we're just checking off the boxes of like things that have been outstanding. Like they just finally paid their bill for a while, you know?
Right.
And so for all those things, like, I mean, it ruins the surprises of those for one thing, or at least to a certain degree. And at best, it's like, there's that thing I've been hearing about for a while. That's fun to finally see it, you know?
Yeah.
It's just not, again, like you said, it's not changing things. It's not making the game better. And like, I can't think of a single time where there's been a leak, and because of that leak, like, we've never had the Sonic movie situation because of a leak where something comes out and it's like, oof, okay, we're gonna, fix that now. Like the backlash, this, that, or the other happened. It's just generally, you just kind of know some stuff early, and like,
Right.
cool.
Right. And you barely do. Like, I think the amount, like, the consistency of, like, quote unquote insiders being like, this is happening, is more or less as consistent as us as Fanatics 4 being like, this would be cool if this game came out. And then the game comes out, and then it's like, yo, the game's here. But the difference is, like, when we're like, yo, this would be sick if this happened, right? It's fun because it's like, hey, man, we haven't had a Mario game in a while. This is how I think they could change it up. And then when it happens, it's like, oh, they actually did the thing that I want. And that was cool. And that's cool, too. And they did this different, but it's better because this and that. Or I wish they didn't do that, but it's still cool that this happened. I'm getting the game that I want. It's never about, like, trying to be an authority on it. It's just like talking about something that would be neat. And like if it was less about that, like about clout chasing more or less, it wouldn't bother me as much. But because the whole like transaction is like, here's this bit of information that may or may not be true, in exchange for, if it is true, I'm clouded. And it's just
And like, I'm trying to figure out, like, because that works. Like, if you make leaks, and like, you're right, that people come flocking to you.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. Like, as I've been like wrestling through it, and like, I mean, part of it is because just like, I mean, that's just marketing. Like, you're just marketing the game for them, but in a way that's like unofficial and maybe like wrong. So yeah, I guess like, it's just like, you're giving the people what they want, but not in the way that's like best for them, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's exactly that. Like, and especially as far as the, kind of the clout chasing kind of thing, I think the great science experiment thing or social experiment thing of that was, like you mentioned in your podcast, but John and doing the Waddle Dee Knows stuff. Like, I remember when it first happened, and I remember, I don't know, it was somebody was like, hey, check this out. And I was like, cool. I'm going to hang on for a second, though, because I remember one other time where somebody had done basically exactly that, or they had just like put a bunch of different tweets. Oh, it was. Yeah. They had just like put out a bunch of tweets and then, like deleted some and stuff. And I remember just seeing a bunch of different tweets and being like, this looks really suspicious. And like, you could just delete tweets. I mean, sure, they got stuff right, but you know what? So I was like, I don't know about that, but that never got like confirmed at that point. So it was, just a theory in the back of my head. So as soon as it happened with Waddle Dee Knows too, I was like, I mean, yeah. I mean, kinda, but also, I don't know. We'll wait and see. And then sure enough, John came out 2 days later. But like within those 2 days, just so many like some articles and stuff were written and all this stuff. And so I think as far as to your question of like, why do we do that? To be honest, like our brains are like kind of jacked up from social media and all sorts of stuff where like we crave dopamine too much and stuff. But like we're on this news cycle kind of thing where like I hate it. I'll like open my phone and open Twitter and then close Twitter and open Twitter on my computer. And like just the serotonin dopamine fix thing is like definitely a problem. But yeah, I think it's a surrogate for when we do get actual information from Nintendo, other places, whatever. Yeah. It's something like that. But ends up having, negative side effects. That, to be perfectly honest, going back to your point, AJ, you could get exactly the same thing for more work, granted, but from the kind of videos, like more speculation, fun theorizing kinds of videos, or even just tweets, or, so like if people instead just did a Twitter account that was, instead of like leaking information, quote unquote, or fake leaks or anything, just fake pitches. And that's all it was. It was like a game where this, that, and the other. I feel like that would be like 99% of the way there, Yeah. At least in terms of like,
I think like just for the dopamine hit for sure. And like that was definitely something that was like super clear to me when we for a little bit experimented with like making the thumbnails look like they're a trailer, because people would get those dopamine hits of like, here's a brand new Kirby game and it looks like very official when you see it in your subscription feed or whatever, right? And then people click in and they're like, all right, I'll watch this.
Wait a minute.
No. It's like they're like, all right, I'll watch this. It is about the thing that I wanted to see, so I'll look at it. But the part that you're missing out on with that is, I think, with these insiders and like when they do get it right, if it gives you social capital, because you tell your friends that you're like, oh yeah, I follow this dude on Twitter that's like really like consistently right about X, Y, and Z, and they said that this is going to happen, so like if it happens, you heard it here first. You by extension get the credit from your friend who is not tapped in that for paying attention to the person that like their whole brand is like, I know what's going on the inside, man. Right.
And by following multiple of these people, you're like hedging your bets or whatever on like, okay, well, I'm not going to believe this one, and I will believe that one or whatever, to where like suddenly you by proxy get like, they might have, 68% accuracy, but you, because you've got 7 people that you're listening to, have, 73% or whatever. That's a good point. But which again, you could still get that from pitch videos, but just not to the same degree.
I know too, because like, I mean, the big, like, there's a big discussion around leaks and stuff back in September when like Jeff Grubb and others kind of said that like Wind Waker and Twilight Princess were coming out, and that didn't happen. It's like, to his credit, Jeff Grubb was like, "Yep, I was wrong. Like, I had trusted my source, and like it was just wrong. I'm sorry." And he was like, I kind of took this stance of like, I want to like kind of cut back on leaks, but also like use leaks as a way to shed light on the industry and how it works. Which also like, full disclaimer here, I actually really like Jeff Grubb. I kind of enjoy his commentary and everything. I don't really know if he's really done that well. Like he's still made a few more leaks, or like has still talked about stuff. But I'm not really sure yet of how it's like, how him doing that kind of opens up, because like the gaming industry is pretty I think opaque. Is that the one that's where it's hard to see?
Yes.
Okay. It's very opaque, and like it's hard to see, so it's kind of like nice to get like a peek behind the curtain. But also I'm not really sure kind of how his leaks have really done that. So
I don't think they have. Because it's usually not, it's about the end product. Like if it wasn't about the end product and it was like, oh, this studio's been working on this, and like from my sources, I think that this is like going along this way because these factors or whatever, right? It's usually just like, yeah, we're going to get this game at this time, it's going to be announced here. That doesn't tell you anything about the industry at all. I think that like if it was a thing that's like, oh yeah, and there's times when this happens where it's like, oh, Retro's been working on X, Y, and Z for this many years and it got canceled because of this or what, and it like a did you know gaming video, like they do that stuff, but it's retroactive, right? It's this happened, not this will happen,
Yeah. I mean, for what it's worth too, I don't know, and maybe he's got specific ideas of things that these things haven't happened yet. These specific kind of leaks that should enable him to do what he's thinking haven't materialized. I don't know. But, I can't really imagine many leaks where something like that would happen nearly to the same degree that like the just minimal, slow heel turn that we're getting from even stuff that like Drayson Schreier is doing with like hard investigative journalism and people coming out and like sources of like, here's this corruptness going on behind or corruption or whatever going on behind the scenes, and uproar from that. Like, and even that is like, it's so slow to maybe kind of sometimes change in some parts of the industry that I just can't imagine how a leak would do that in the even close to the same way, which is already taking its sweet time. So it's interesting. Like also Chronically Cal said about 10 minutes ago, and I just saw it, said Mario 3D All-Stars ruined leaks for me almost completely. I think that is the thing too, is like there's an element of kind of, again, what we were talking about that can be a fun thing to do, which is like the more pitching things, and there's leaks. But when the two of those cross together in the wrong way, then like that can also, because I think what's fine is here's this leak that's happening, something that's in the news or whatever. Who knows what that's about? But let's talk about what we'd want to see in theory, whatever. Yeah, that's one thing. On the other hand, if it's like, here, Mario 3D All-Stars is coming and it's going to have all these games in it, and then people like adding leaks onto that or like backing that up by being like, and everything is 4K, 8K, 100K or whatever. Like,
it's going to launch alongside GameCube support.
Yeah, right. So, that's where we get into trouble too, is like the piggybacking kind of stuff that seems to probably happen around there, and like where even if the initial leak is true, then you can still run into danger by it being conflated with just being a bigger thing it is, and then disappointment happening. Yeah, right, exactly.
I think it would be a whole nother thing if, like, say, I was going to say a specific like person as an example. I don't want to do that. But say like I, as an insider, was like, okay, I heard from a source specifically that a brand new Donkey Kong game is coming out. And I presented that and said, hey, a brand new Donkey Kong game is coming out. And in my head, I'm like, this would be cool if they did X, Y, and Z. But I presented it as a brand new Donkey Kong game is coming out. That's information that I have that is sourced from a reliable person. And then I'm like, because I think it would be neat, I'm like, oh yeah, Cranky Kong's coming back, and this game's like 4-player multiplayer game, and it has online, and like also there's a fighting game mode, and like all that stuff gets presented in one tweet. They don't break it up as like, this would be cool if. They're just like, here's this thing, all as one post, and if it happens, neat. If it doesn't, whatever, right? And matter of fact, that's not even accurate. It's not if it happens, neat. It's if it happens, I am going to drag it and make it seem like I am the smartest human in the universe, Like, you always got to come to me for whatever Nintendo news ever. And through the, like, the Nintendo community, which this also doesn't make it any better, the Nintendo community, like, accepted things of, like, precedent, which for whatever reason people accept as law, and with Nintendo specifically, it is the furthest thing from that. Always, it is the furthest thing. So if somebody comes out with a quote unquote leak for like a time frame or during a time frame that the community has already accepted is a time that we're going to get information, like a September direct or a January direct per se, right? If you're like, yo, brand new freaking Pikmin game, Pikmin 5 is dropping and we're going to learn about it on January 23rd, people would be like, I can see that, because January direct, we're definitely going to get that. We always get those. When have we ever not?
But I also think from this project, what I've learned is like no one's really making those kind of claims. Like it's really only like, I mean, there's out there, like people are saying that a new Donkey Kong game is coming. Like some say 3D, some say 2D, but that's all they're saying. And so that's kind of like, at that point, that's like okay, Sherlock, thanks for cluing us in. So it's like not even that specific. And
that's like the easiest thing to also be like,
past,
I mean,
though,
the plans change situation.
Yeah,
like, they have been more
like
in the past.
stuff like Star Fox Grand Prix. I think after Star Fox Grand Prix, that's when they stopped.
Yeah,
like that's when.
So and that's what I was gonna say. a minute ago too is like, do you guys feel like leaks have slowed down over since the year 1 or 2 of the Switch? Because to me, I haven't paid attention to it as much, so it might be just that like I'm just filtering it out for the most part. As opposed to early days where I'd be like, oh, interesting. And like whoever, Marcus Sellers or whatever, and that guy that, was, I don't know. He was one of the typical like Samus Hunter kinds of people where I think some people are even like, is Samus Hunter just Marcus Sellers? Yeah. So one of those was something like that. In any case, I feel like in the early days, there was just like a lot of leaks and now there's fewer of them. Does it seem like that to you guys or not?
I think there's definitely less leaks, and I think that the leaks, quote unquote, that we do get are like they swing for the fences less, if at all.
Yes.
More cryptic and
Yeah. Like I found that out just doing the project. Like there were a lot more in the first half of the year than there were later. Like even the people I think who are more legitimate than others, like they kind of just stopped doing as much. And like a few, like Emily Rogers just doesn't do it anymore. Like some of these major players just aren't participating in it. Or even like Samus Hunter just disappeared. Like not like the Twitter account's still there, like just not posting at all anymore.
Right.
That's so interesting. I wonder to some degree if there's something to be said for like, it would be hard to go back and do this same project for 2018, for example, and just see what that looked like because we weren't in 2018. I mean, we're not in 2018 now at blah, 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 it just would be hard to kind of parse that. But I do wonder just what that looked like at the time. I had a point that I was going to make, but it's gone. So it just would be interesting I guess what we're going to go with as the point. It leaked out. But it's,
Don't worry, I'll leak his point next week.
Parker, to be fair, I think that that's how the project started, was thinking of like, can I look back and see what's accurate? And I think I started it and it was just like, this is way too much work. I'm just going to track it as it goes. And even that was like I kind of tracked it every 2 weeks to a month. And like, that's part of why my whole opinion of it soured. Is like, I can't believe I'm wasting so much time on doing this. And like, I just want to make it to a year and I'll be done.
Yeah, no, totally. That's
I think also it would be hard to do it retroactively because like we were saying about the insider like strat and quote insider strat. A lot of it is tweeting stuff and then deleting it. So like there's going to be like a lot of like lost information because the stuff that was inaccurate is probably not here anymore.
Right. Yeah.
I remember what I was going to say before too. It's that I wonder if Nintendo also, because if it was more accurate in the past at some point, if they've just kind of, put more of a stranglehold on stuff and kind of clamp down. Exactly. So, there's to some degree, there's more people within that would maybe have access to stuff now because the Switch is in a bigger thing going on, organization, all that. But at the same time, in the early days, I'd imagine that they had to like, at this point things are more routine, so it's just easier to be able to plug those kinds of leaks and not have this stuff happen. I suppose I don't really know, but we just get like even manufacturing leaks and stuff like that. It's just tricky because for every one that turns out right, there's one or two that are wrong. And like we saw manufacturing leak for the Switch Lite, like that happened. Right. It was the back of it. It's accurate. We saw a box recently for that might be special edition Breath of the Wild box.
Oh yeah.
Tears of the Kingdom box,
exists.
But could be Photoshop. Exactly. So it's like, who's to say with those kinds of things? And like people are so good at this. I mean, it brings us to actually let's get into this side of the conversation too. Brings us into like I asked people what the leak that most tricked them was, and I knew there was going to be at least one of these, and it was Mark. The Grinch leak, it looks like. Yeah. So tell us about that.
I'm still baffled of just it's a masterpiece of just the hoops they went through to make this, and just like to make it seem like such a candid and offhand thing. Like I was so sure that this was real, and like we were talking about, like it really made the final like Smash reveal pretty disappointing because that was the one that ended with like Incineroar, and it's like, okay,
Yeah,
that was
and
it.
That
All
thing
right.
had showed that there was going to be like
That's
7 or 8 left, or something like that, right?
Confirmed that it wasn't going to happen. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. To me, the thing that confirmed it wasn't going to happen, I think, was Isaac was going to be in it, which I was stoked about.
And then it had the assist trophy announcement.
That, but I think maybe even before that, there was the September Direct got moved. So it was on September 6th, then they moved to September 13th because there was an earthquake in Japan, which makes sense. But somebody claimed that like the reason they moved it is because they were gonna announce Isaac, and he is a ground type like alchemist or whatever.
My God,
so I mean all of his synergy is ground type, and he does like earthquakes and stuff, and they were going to be showing that, and that would be insensitive. And I was like,
He's making points. He's making points.
I
It's
do also,
not that,
I
is
do
it?
love that kind of came true for when the Queen died and Nintendo UK delayed the Direct because of Tears of the Kingdom.
it really did. You know what? I completely didn't even connect till now that it's because of the actual word Tears of the Kingdom,
Yes.
not just because you know,
Because
like,
a
we're not going to
queen
do a
dies.
big thing. I mean, I figure it's like Queen died. We're not going to make like a big showy thing, you know, blah, blah, blah. We're going to, but no, it's 100% Tears of the Kingdom. That's,
Yeah, whole country's grieving. Let's rub it in their faces.
yeah, man alive. That's so funny. But yeah, so Grinch League, that I can see it. AJ, is there a
got me
leak that
good.
you can think of for you that like got you the most? Probably very early on, I'd guess, because you've been cynical about these for a while.
I'm just a cynical
and rightly so.
person naturally. And the more like ingrained that I got in the whole like, you know, content creation and looking into like how accurate may or may not this be. So it's just like I've always had like grain of salt attitude, and that's why I like more so adopted the thing of like this leak is happening. I don't know if it's true, but if it is true, this would be cool if X, Y, and Z, because I never really think it's true, you know. Like
Yeah.
I think the most believable leak was probably the leak, quote unquote, you know, the Rayman thing. When RT Omni made the Rayman model for Smash 4.
Yeah.
That was probably the best one. But even that, I was like, why would they do that?
Yeah.
The only thing that makes leaks, quote unquote, leaks believable is stuff like that, when it's just so well made that's like, well, who is A, that good at making things like this, and B, like, has the time, energy, wherewithal to make this for something that is not real. They're making no income.
Right.
I mean, on the back end, they could, because it could like jumpstart their career and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But that's hindsight, you know, like we didn't, that wasn't as much a thing when the Rayman situation happened.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just like usually stuff like that. And I think that people also, which is why I think that it doesn't happen to me as often, people fall for leaks that they really, really, really want to happen.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like, I don't really care about information before I get the game. So I don't get in that mode of like, oh, I got this information for this thing that may or may not happen. So like, I really, really want the thing that I'm learning about, and I'm searching through all the forums and going, I don't let that, they announce it, I'm like, that's gonna happen, cool, and then I don't get actively excited for it until it's like a month away, and I like, I know like this is the date it's coming out, I already got it preloaded on my Switch, you know, but until I know it exists, I don't care.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, prime example of that one for me is that I was disappointed to hear that Zippo had such a low reliability record on yours. Because in my mind, it was like, oh, I think he's pretty reliable. Like all the things that I'd heard specifically, which was not very many probably of the claims. Like the fact that he's had 14 claims this year, I'm like, oh, okay, never mind. Sure. But at some point, he mentioned Mario Golf, which is a gimme. But then also they're working on Golden Sun. And to be for what it's worth, I don't like specifically believe it, but I was like, he's been pretty reliable in fact past, and like that would be nice, you know, which like is very different from like, and so therefore it's going to happen.
It is definitely
but still,
happening, and you're an idiot if you don't think it's not. You know?
yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah. I think for me, the one that's most tricked me is the one that still kind of like I don't
It's
really
like
know if
inconclusive.
it was true or not. And it's the Metroid Prime HD back in 2018 or back in 2017 coming to the Game Awards or whatever. No, it was 2018 that it would have been there because it was the year after Bayonetta was at the Game Awards. But yeah, everybody was so sure that that was going to be there. Metro Prime 4 was going to show up, which that one would have made sense comparatively. But, you know, and now things have changed to where now it's Metro Prime 1 remake and all that kind of stuff. Like, I still kind of just believe, like, yeah, things are just shifting around a lot. They keep punting the game down the road. Like, I don't know what's happening with it, but, like, that's the one that I'm like, yeah, maybe, you know? Like, enough people talk about it.
Here's the other part
probably,
about it, right? There's a lot of these, like, for all we know, given Retro's history, which is verifiable, Star Fox Grand Prix could have been a thing. Like, it could have just actually really happened and got canned because they cancel everything. And I think that that's like another one of those things. And also, given what we know about Nintendo, like, Nintendo's no stranger to like punting stuff further out over and over again. You know, they did it with we did it with Metroid Dread. They did it with Pikmin 4, you know, so it's like it's hard to say like the things that just make sense, you know, like the Metroid trilogy or whatever. It's hard to say whether that is a leak or it is a thing that it just makes sense, and that's why it's going to like eventually happen, because like why wouldn't they do it?
Yeah, like I'm still convinced that the Wind Waker and Twilight Princess stuff is coming eventually, but but just don't know when.
Yeah, and it's like less because of the information and more because it just makes sense. Like, independent of any Nintendo insider, that's a conclusion that I would come to, and that I think is like a lot of the like why they come to it, because it just makes sense. It's not because like they literally always, I think some of them do, like the Leon Robinsons and like the Emily Rogers and stuff like that, like they actually do have like connections and stuff like that for people that like even them are like a few like rungs down the ladder. So like either like they have inconclusive information, like they don't know everything about the project. Stuff gets changed, stuff gets delayed, so on and so forth.
The Liam Robertson one, that's a good one. I hadn't thought about that, but
when he
specifically
just leaked rabbits and had the Mario image in his profile picture with sunglasses on it.
That is funny. So I wasn't even thinking that. I was saying more recently, the drama had been around for a while, like for 2.5 years or so, the Wumpa League stuff. Yeah. And it's just so funny because like he so obviously just had actual information about it, which is great. Like he literally got like footage of the like in dev, you know, kind of stuff or pictures or something along those lines, like behind the scenes things, footage of it. And then you know, since then the game has been actually announced and all that stuff. So like everything he said about it seems to have been basically true. But the fact that that may be true, and yet the fan base like was so mad at him for just being, you know, kind of a Debbie Downer, telling the truth, that it's like, game's not coming. Like, it, you know, they canceled this other game. They were going to make this, but it punted down or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And people were so mad about it. And so like, it's just, it's an interesting thing that like, even the best case scenario where you so obviously have true information, like that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to turn out well for everything. So like kind of, I'm sure at this point, he kind of, I'd be inclined to assume, just wishes that he didn't even talk about it in the first place. You know, didn't put a target on his back and was like, whatever. Similar to like Jeff Grubb, like you were saying, Mark, that like, he's like, I think I'm done with leaks at this point, which like justifiably so. Flyably.
I think there's also just a type of gamer that like they just get. So a real world example that I had before Fanatics 4, one of the people that was actually going to be a part of it and why it was 4 instead of 2 or whatever, he got so mad at me because I told him that I didn't think that, and this was back in like freaking 2015, 2016, I didn't think that Kingdom Hearts 3 was going to come out until 2018. he got so angry, like infuriated, and like I was like literally being attacked like by him and his other friends or whatever. And I'm like,
Yeah.
bro, I'm just saying, I don't think it makes sense. And like people take that as you threatening the reality that is the game that they want coming out soon or coming out at all happening. And it's like, I'm not working on a game. I'm just trying to like let you know that like
Temper your expectations.
Yeah, exactly.
AJ is personally delaying Kingdom Hearts 3.
Exactly. And that's what I think
on.
like a lot of people have that whole thing. And there's like a meme about that too with like certain insiders and stuff where it's like, man, what's his name? Who is his name? The journalist Schreier, Jason Schreier, that he's like always delaying stuff, and it's like yo, he's just reporting on what
hilarious.
he knows, man.
Well,
Yeah.
AJ, I can't believe that you're holding Kingdom Hearts 4 hostage.
I didn't say anything about Kingdom Hearts 4 yet, but
How dare you?
if I think it's going to get delayed, you'll be the first to know.
That's okay.
I think to go back to a point too, Mark, that you made on your podcast, that I think was a good one, is that it does make for like the people that make content that like have inside information of some sort and then also do other stuff like Jeff Grubb, Nate the Hate, whatever, provided that you like their voice, not literal like sound of their voice, but you know, the things that they have to say, the content they make and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think, you know, it could theoretically make for a slightly richer experience in some ways if they use that information well without actually leaking it or whatever. But like, you know, there's something to be done there. I don't know exactly what it is, but there's something that you can do with that stuff. And, you know, hopefully it does help them in those ways to do that. So like, I think, you know, for those folks, worth following if you're okay, if you can take or leave the leak side and then can just follow them for that, then like sweet. But just following the leaks portion on its own, maybe not worth the trouble.
Yeah.
Right.
And I also
Yeah.
don't feel like it's really worth it for them at the end of the day, like in terms of like having like worthwhile following. Because like your following will never care about you for you if all you're known for is that you're a leaker and you're a reliable source of information. Because that's not like that has nothing to do with your input. There's no creativity there. There's no like skill in being like, yo, I heard this game's coming out. This game's coming out. Check it out. You know, it's like, okay.
Right.
And if
I
you
think
can't
there's
find a way,
also-
go for it.
Oh, if you finish your thought, that's kind of tangential.
If you can't find a way to like bridge the gap between like here's the reason why people come to me and here's another reason why people should stay, it's just like no point, I think.
Yeah. And what I've like something that came from this episode is kind of similar to like how AG, you had your friend that attacked you for Kingdom Hearts 3. But like some of these people get these kind of like fervorous followers. Like I had one guy, this is the only like negative response I've gotten, but one guy was tweeting at me of like, I can't believe you just dismissed Silex Hunter when he's like the most accurate of them all. And I was like, I mean, I said what I thought it was. And I had tried to like kind of get his take on like, why do you care? Like why, like what's compelling about this to you? And he kind of just responded of like, I mean, your whole survey's flawed because you didn't include him. And also you included people who aren't real. And it's like, well, that was kind of the point. And so I just like responded, just like, they sure listened to the episode because he clearly listened to the whole thing. But it's just so weird.
That's so funny.
Like people identify themselves with like another person or just like another game, and it gets all wrapped up in
It's
like
your whole personality.
Yes,
Yep.
right.
It's a very common thing with nerd culture specifically. And I'm not going to say why that is, but there's definitely a reason.
Yeah, it's interesting. But you know what I hear? Little bird told me.
Oh, really? You know
Nintendo
something?
dogs. Yeah. It is 100% coming.
Yo,
to
this
iOS
is
and
another
Android.
thing, man. This is another thing I've been saying for forever, dude. Just freaking do it. Just do it. And like it's like another one of those where I didn't even want to make a video about it because mobile just makes sense for Nintendo specifically because like Switch doesn't have any like Street Pass like adjacent situations. So like this, you don't get the part of it where it's like, oh, I walked around and then I like ran into another person with that also had a dog in this video game, and they played and we traded toys and snacks and whatnot. So yeah, no, this is a good situation, and I hope it happens.
The details is just that it's from a patent. It seems like that there's something Nintendo, something mobile phones, something patent. So I mean, could happen, could not happen, could be that it's being misread, any of the above. But
could just
felt
be
like
an
a good
idea
starter
that they
of a
had
conversation.
That's like this would be like we might mess around with this. Why not? We haven't used this IP in a minute.
Insider the patent.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's definitely on the bingo card.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. So, this specific thing aside, or including this too, we're in 2023. Nintendo, and their mobile games they're still going strong with some of the ones that they have. I think Fire Emblem Heroes is still doing pretty well. Pokemon Go obviously is doing fantastic.
Yep.
Et cetera, et
like
cetera.
kind of theirs.
Mario Kart Tour seems to be, they get some money from it, so that's something.
Yep.
Mario Kart Tour seems to be doing pretty well, but they also aren't putting out a ton of new ones. Pikmin Bloom is a newer one that they've been trying to invest some into. But do we think 2023, as we're looking ahead, there's going to be more iOS, Android kinds of mobile games for them, or is that something that's dying down? And is Nintendogs a good candidate or a bad one? AJ, obviously, you think a good one?
Yes. I think that they
Mark, what do you think?
Dropped the ball in that
sorry,
IP,
go ahead.
man. I was just saying, I think they dropped the ball in that IP. People care about Nintendogs, man. Go for it, Mark.
Nintendogs has been kind of like my prediction for the Switch, like every year of like, this is the year. Nintendogs is coming back. And so I would kind of be disappointed to see it come to iOS only. But also it makes sense. I think it could do great on the Switch itself. And I also they really seem to dial back on it. And also Nintendo's also not really afraid to just kill things that aren't exceeding their expectations. Like Dr. Mario is gone, and that other Dragalia Lost, they also axed.
Yep.
This one, I think would do great and would be a huge success for them. I'd rather see them go more a console route for it,
because I think with the stuff that they axed, with the exception of maybe Miitomo, it's usually stuff that they put out and they're like, we can make this IP work. There's billions of people with phones, and it just didn't happen. But Nintendogs is an IP that pretty consistently sold a lot.
So I mean, I'm pretty sure on the DS it's one of the highest selling DS games. I want to say it's 30 million or something crazy. 24 million.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
pretty close.
People have Nintendogs nostalgia for sure.
Which is, it's interesting because that's not one I've never played Nintendogs, so I don't know the specific appeal other than I kind of
cool,
I've got an idea. It's kind of like Tamagotchi, but way more.
Yeah, man, it's Tamagotchi. Freaking do the dog shows and whatnot. You walk your dog, you get toys, you meet other dogs, your dogs get friends, man. It's great.
Yep. I feel like it's one of those things where it's tough now that we've had the sports games, like the Mario sports games that we've had and stuff, and Nintendo Switch Sports, and a bunch of things that have a lot of potential, but oftentimes Nintendo kind of it just does kind of the bare minimum, not literally the bare minimum, but they could go way more into it, make it a deeper experience and stuff. Yeah. This to me feels especially Nintendo specifically. I could imagine, the surface level appeal is obvious, but the longevity just depends on how deep it goes. So that would be one thing I'd be a little bit worried about considering some of the more recent outings, is that it's not as deep as it might have been in the past when it was, especially because if it's a mobile game and it's something that can be added on to later down the road and do DLC and blah, 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 blah. When they make it for the DS, they're this is the game, this is the whole thing, we're printing it, it's done.
Right.
So therefore, make it as deep as it is. But if it's not particularly deep in the first place and it doesn't quite meet their expectations, and then they support it a little bit, and then they cancel it, and then it never ends up doing all the things that they wanted it to do, and that's just kind of a shame. So, that would be the only thing I'd be nervous about trajectory wise for this. But otherwise, having a little furry friend on your phone, just an animal. Nintendogs would be nice.
It's true.
Something like that.
Friggin' then just do a companion app on the Switch so you see it on your TV. It's the HD friggin', even though phones they're higher resolution now.
That's true.
But it's still
and
not
you can
a
AirPlay,
big
I guess.
screen. You could, but then you
4K.
need specific screens for that. You can't AirPlay on everything.
That's true.
So that would be their and also if they want to gamify it more, they know people have Joy-Con if you have a Switch and blah blah blah, and they probably couldn't charge for this app. Probably be a freaking what was the Animal Crossing Wii U thing? There was an Animal Crossing Wii U situation.
Pocket Camp.
No, I was
that?
thinking of something else.
Oh.
It was just basically specifically to see what Animal Crossing would look like in HD. But I forgot what it was called. A similar situation.
Amoeba Festival?
No, it was something else.
Okay.
It was something else.
Someone's just yelling into their stereo right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
No, for sure. So, if it's not Nintendogs though, if you could see just one new Nintendo mobile game in 2023, let's take your pick. I know Chronically Cal said make Table Turf War a mobile game with more features. I think that would be great.
Yep. It's a
great
Table
idea.
Turf is quite fun.
That's a fact.
So that'd be fun.
Copy
But yeah,
Doodle
what about you guys?
Jump. Copy Doodle Jump and make it Ice Climbers. There you go.
Oh,
Doodle Jump. I don't know.
You
that
never
one.
heard of Doodle Jump? That's crazy,
Doodle
bro.
Jump. I mean, maybe I have and I just didn't realize, but no, I don't think I've ever played that.
Wow, man, that's a classic.
But it looks fun.
iOS App Store game.
Nice.
Crazy. That would be
Yeah.
cheap and people would like it. But I mean, really, my actual answer is WarioWare. Why? Come on.
yeah.
Yeah. Classic.
This is cheating a little bit, but I think they should put some of the retro stuff on there. Put NES games and Game Boy games.
Yeah.
They'll
Game
never
Boy
do it.
especially, honestly. Because NES games one thing, but form factor wise, just phones are the sizes of Game Boys generally.
Yeah.
So that would be. Yeah, again, I think I agree that they wouldn't do it, but
Never gonna happen.
Yeah, I don't.
But,
I think it's just because the core experience of using your phone to play a video game feels like garbage, especially a traditional game. And it's people have controllers and stuff like that, but usually when Nintendo designs a thing like a video game, they're designing it with the lowest common denominator in mind. They're not oh well, the person that owns this, that is playing this game obviously is going to buy a backbone or whatever, right?
Right. Yeah.
They're going to use their screen, so they're trying to they usually try to figure out how to design it in a way that does not feel like garbage. And usually that means less input. Even for things they don't even usually do movement. They don't do the whole here's virtual buttons. If they're going to have control of some sort, it's either you tap it one time with your one finger or it's motion or whatever, right? They try to make it as simplified as possible, and I think that even stuff like Pokemon, where it's just going through menus and walking around, it just seems like it's something that they wouldn't want to put on a phone without figuring out a control scheme that works for the phone specifically.
Yeah, I can envision some version. They wouldn't do this, but some kind of hardware something that it is adjustable to some degree, but you can kind of put your phone into or something like that, and then it kind of spring loaded or something, and then it has buttons.
Yeah.
But they just wouldn't.
But
it could
exactly.
work. That might be a good third-party thing to exist, but it's not going to happen in real life.
Yeah.
So
I think the way that they could do that, or that I could see them doing that, is if it was like a Switch Online like perk of some sort.
that's what I was. Yes,
Because
100%
then they can like reasonably assume like, oh, you have Joy-Con. Joy-Con is supported on iOS, I think.
that's true.
And if they're
think you're
not,
right.
they can be. So like,
Yeah.
there you go. Do it like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
But
that was going to be my suggestion as well, is like, if they do it as like you have an SO expansion pack, and then from that you get a download thing that you can access it on your phone. And that's it. You just play it on there, or you play it on the Switch. But yeah, I think you're right about the controls thing, that being fairly prohibitive to what they would actually want, but still would be cool.
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
I'm not knocking the idea. Just Nintendo's willingness.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. And then for mine, man, I had an idea and I totally lost it. So yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna say Zelda mobile game. Let's go for it. Just go all in.
Legend
As
Zelda
far as
Run.
what exactly? Yes, that's the one.
It's what people, give the people what they want.
That's all they've ever wanted, really.
Nah,
is
man,
just
the people
watching
want
Zelda
Metroid
run.
crawl. That's what the people want.
Yep. It's just water looking good. That's it. It's
Yeah.
another Wii U callback. Not that I was around during that period anyway.
Yeah, you just didn't
But-
exist.
You weren't born yet.
I just kind of, I'd been born. I just poofed out of existence for a little bit, Lost a couple years. It was a lost situation. It's just 5 years.
Oh, you had COVID before COVID? You just
Yeah,
lost those 5 years?
Yep. I had COVID 14 for, 20, yeah, something like that. Is it COVID-19 because it kind of
think
started
so.
in 2019?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there it is. So that is that thing. But then lastly, that game might not be out yet, but there are some other games that are out. For example, Fire Emblem Engage is coming out too.
true.
Well, in a couple hours.
I have it. It's on there. I didn't play it yet, though.
Have you already started playing it? Okay.
No, I did not. I was going to stream it. I presented the possibility, but then I was like, I'd rather work on shorts. I wrote some shorts. I recorded some shorts.
Nice.
So here we are.
Look at that.
I did not play it yet, but I'm going to play it. I'm going to probably stream it on Monday. Not this weekend. Probably.
Is that when you're going to start it, you think, or go ahead and do some of the tutorial-y stuff?
Nah,
and
I'm just
then-
going to start it on stream. I have no interest in playing this off stream. I mean, I kind of I like Fire Emblem games, but I think that it'd just be better to play it on stream.
Yep.
It's just a weeb nuzlocke. That's all it is.
Checks out.
Put that in the
Mark,
box.
what's your interest level in this, or thoughts on reviews that you've seen, or any of that kind of stuff?
There's no interest level for me. I'm glad it looks good. I just not that much into tactics, not that much into RPGs. I'm sorry,
Yep.
but
Not into RPGs at all.
well,
Like,
just turn-based combat, I guess more specifically.
Okay.
Which this is kind of.
Are
that.
there
I know
any
it's different.
exceptions to
Same
that?
here.
Yeah, I played a few Pokemon games. That's about it.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No,
I know that you're
that's
crying in
better.
Golden Sun
Furious.
tears right now, but
I'm not sure
started
it'd be
that.
better if it wasn't turn based and die on that hill.
100%. Yeah.
But yeah, no, same. I just think if Fire Emblem didn't have the permadeath thing, I don't think I would care at all, because the reason why I care about Fire Emblem is usually the antithesis of caring about video games for me, and that's because usually I care about at least one character, and I'm like, I can't let them die,
Yeah.
And so that's the whole of it for me. I play Fire Emblem in spite of itself in a similar way to why I play Pokemon in spite of itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I've watched some of the reviews from Nintendo Life and one or two other ones. I don't remember. And it's interesting because they talk a lot about how the combat's really good and there's a lot of good things about it, but the Somnial isn't as good as the Monastery was, for example. So the between battle bits aren't as deep, and character interactions and various kinds of things like that, which is interesting because as I'm watching it, I'm like, oh man, that's too bad because I liked those things. But at the same time, I don't know that I liked those things as much as a lot of other people like those things. So I don't really know that I care. But it's funny because like just hearing so many kind of like somewhat negative things in a review makes me less excited for it, even though it's things that I don't think matter to me at all. Yeah. So it's an odd thing. But all that said, I'm in a pickle because like I have a big backlog of other games that I've gotten for like birthday and Christmas and stuff, and I'd like to play those. But this one's in the zeitgeist now. But like,
hey, man,
I don't want to just add
bring
more
it
stuff.
full circle. Just play my copy, and it doesn't even matter because it's on the freaking New Zealand account. So like, you don't even got to worry about it if I'm playing. And also,
honestly, yeah.
if you want to track the amount of hours that you played it, you're the only one playing on that account. So there you go.
That's
Perfect.
true. Honestly, might end up doing that because, like, I put aside money, or I, had some eShop money and stuff like that, and I saved enough for this game after buying a couple games on sale and stuff like that. But then now I'm just like, I don't know, do I save that for something else? But best of both worlds. So, I'll start it out, and if anything, I'll just start it again if I get it for myself. Or I just won't. I never bought Paper Mario for myself because I just played the whole thing on your account, and I've not regretted that once. So
I would have did the same thing if I wasn't stupid, but I was dumb. Really, it's just like I was like, I don't want to bother him. I'm at GameStop. I gotta like message him and ask him for his password.
Man, you should have done it, but that's all right.
I should have did it.
So yeah, that's that game, and it's coming out. But you know what? There's also games that are already out. There are even RPGs that are already out, and some games that we've been playing. For example, I pulled out Octopath Traveler this week. And only played it for about
makes me want to flow up.
I know. I played it for about 15 minutes just because I had to get some footage from it. But it among other games doesn't sometimes let you save video, like do screen recording videos. Yep. So I had to like get out the
Delgado,
the video captures stuff and all that. So it worked out fine at the end. But I was like, come on, it's annoying when that kind of thing happens. But in any case, it was just nice opening that game. And like a weird feeling. I don't very often open up games that games that have a start and a finish. I usually just like once I get to the finish, I will never touch it again, barring, a couple exceptions and stuff. So it was weird to open it back up and see my like level 68 and 74 characters and just be like, hey guys, how you been doing? But something's still kind of nostalgic about it. So it did. I mean, for what it's worth, playing it, I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to go start playing Live Alive now at some point. That was last night though. So I haven't actually started playing Live Alive because I have not had time yet, but that's one of the ones that's on that backlog. So, I think probably that'll be up there. But that's one of the games that I've been playing a little bit this week. But what about you guys? Mark, what you been playing?
So I've been replaying Breath of the Wild, actually. Which honestly, Parker, this is all your fault. I realized I started back in June. You were talking about Ocarina of Time. And I was like, I really should finish Ocarina of Time and play through it and actually beat it. And so I did. And then my wife, Sarah, watched me, and she had a Wii growing up and had Twilight Princess, but like in the middle school had just soft locked the game. So like she never beat it.
Legitimately soft locked it? Because quick anecdote. Okay. Yeah.
Like just had someone else try it out who like knew what he was doing and like couldn't figure out how to get past it. It was like there's like a cutscene after the water dungeon that didn't trigger, and then she quit and it saved and couldn't past it.
Yeah. I one time thought that I had soft lock. I played the like opening sequence, got to a spot, probably like played like 3 or 4 hours, and then left it for a while. The like first time I ever played it, came back like 2 months later. I was like, oh yeah, I need to play this game. And I opened it and I was like, I soft locked it. I messed something up. I don't know what's going on. And it turned out that I just completely forgot there's a certain button that like lets you open your item wheel. I was like, I can't get this, whatever it was. So I played 3 hours again to get back up to that point to then just be like, It was a button that I just didn't press.
Oh my God.
So I felt really smart. But so yes, Twilight Princess. Carry on.
Anyway, yeah. So she was like, I kind of want to see the full game. So I played Twilight Princess again, and then it's like, I mean, I'll just play the rest of them. So I started doing all the 3D Zeldas. So I played Majora's Mask next, which I had not played before.
What are your opinions at this point on that one?
I really wish I liked Majora's Mask. It is really annoying. It's like a lot of really cool ideas that get old very quickly. And that was really frustrating.
Yeah.
After that, moved on to Skyward Sword again. And then I kind of skipped Wind Waker. It was a very weird trajectory, but I started Breath of the Wild because that's when I really wanted to play. And I also started Wind Waker and like 3 dungeons into that too, playing it simultaneously. I think like Wind Waker might be my second favorite Zelda behind Breath of the Wild, but I'm also not sure if I want to keep going with it. At this point, I'm a little bit Zelda'd out, and I don't really want to feel that for Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm really enjoying Breath of the Wild again. Having a great time with it. And I think that has made me excited for Tears of the Kingdom more. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now. All that to say, because Parker started Ocarina of Time, I played all of the 3D Zeldas.
Well, you took the little that, because I only got up to the Fire Temple again, and I was like, all right, I'm done. And so that's it. So yeah, good job on taking it and running with it.
Just overdo it.
Yeah, there you go. Nice.
I'm playing nothing. I played Splatoon yesterday on stream. But other than that, and also I played Smash Brothers on stream, but I wasn't home, so didn't play any video games. I played Smash Brothers on my Switch in handheld mode against the CPU on the train.
Nice.
And
Fun.
that happened. It wasn't fun. It wasn't fun at all.
I'm sorry. My condolences.
Yeah. But no, I didn't really play anything this week. But I'm going to play Fire Emblem on Monday.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, I guess last one's for me. Played a little bit more Pokemon Scarlet Pokemon Scarlet specifically. Just kind of plugging away at it a little bit. Still, I guess just kind of trying to figure out my pace with it. I think I'm just realizing more and more how just the like minute minute to minute. That's silly, the minute minute, whatever. But the like distinct minute to minute gameplay of Legends Arceus really did gel with me better than the minute to minute gameplay of just Scarlet. I guess, the more standard Pokemon, I suppose, at this point. And like, I don't know that there's waypoints that I'm like super excited about. Like, I need to get to that thing, because it'll be like, all right, I guess I'll go do this Titan and then go this Titan. So I'm not enjoying it, but it just like, it's not hooking me at the same time. So it's one of those where I'm like curious if it's going to hook me more at some point a little bit later, or just if I'm just going to keep playing it just to kind of have something to play. And it's nice to see new little Pokemon and catch some friends and level some friends up and stuff like that. But yeah,
I think if the minute to minute gameplay is your issue, then you probably won't like it more.
Yeah,
because like the overall experience is like of Arceus, like we've talked about, it's just less. But the minute to minute is completely different. So it's like you're eating like the same French fries and one sauce you don't like, and then the other sauce you do like. The like like the French fries aren't going to get better because they're the same.
Yeah,
it's just you like the sauce on the other one better.
So yeah, we'll see on that. I also haven't been back to the main town and the school and stuff like that at all yet. So I'll probably drop by and see what new things are going on there. But yeah, as I pick up some of the other games at this point, I might kind of just fall off of that. That's fine, Not too worried about it. But yeah, played a little bit of that. And then otherwise, Ashley and I, again, will pick up Golf with Your Friends every once in a while, play a little bit of that. And That's a fun time. I feel like there's something else, but I bought a couple of games on sale just because I had some eShop money and figured I'd go ahead and do those before they went away. So I bought Ori and the Will of Wisps. I've not played it yet. Yeah.
I played still
Ori and the Blind
Game
Forest.
Pass. You got Game Pass.
I do. I do. That one just felt like it was on sale for $7.50, and
enough.
I was like, I'll just go ahead and have it, you know. But I really did think, I was like, but I'm just gonna have it on Game Pass
Yeah.
too.
Yep.
But that feels like a good Switch one. Like I think the kinds of things that I play on Game Pass so far have been kind of smaller experiences than that. So you know, just like really easy pop in, pop out kinds of things.
Yep.
So yeah, and speaking of which, did play some more Potion Craft a little bit, which is just a fun little game. I like it a lot. Mark, you would like that game. I'm pretty sure. I could
should
be
check it
wrong.
out. I remember you talking
but
about it last week. I want to check it out.
Yeah, it's just a little fun time. It feels in the like a little bit adventure kind of. It not spreadsheety, but like that part of my brain a little bit.
Yeah.
So that's
There's also
nice.
sometimes those games like just hit a groove, and sometimes they hit a this is too much like my actual job, and I totally bounce off of them.
Yeah, it's funny because like the way I like. So yeah, I probably described this a little bit last week, but I don't know if I did it well. So as you're making the potions, it's like you've got kind of a little map thing that. It's like a flavor map, I guess, is maybe the best way to describe it. Like it doesn't show it as that, but like conceptually, I'm realizing that that's what it is because you use different ingredients that like the ice fruit will always bring you to the left in a zigzaggy pattern or something like that, whatever. But then other ingredients that share kind of same characteristics will follow a similar general trajectory so that like the whole right side probably becomes like more and more of like more icy or something along those lines. So it's just an interesting just conceptually how it uses ingredients and stuff. I don't know. It's fun. It's silly, you know, but what a good old time. And I think that's
love
about
a
all I'm
silly
playing.
game. Good little silly game.
So yeah, I think that's all the games we're playing, it sounds like. But let's do Q&A, you know? From Twitter. We got questions from Twitter. It's been a while since Twitter's asked questions. One of them, Mark said, this friggin' guy about the Grinch in response to the leaks conversation. So, checks out. Cheesy said, in the movie Bullet Train, there's two guys that go by the name of fruits, tangerine and lemon. What food would you go by and why?
My first gut instinct was pineapple, but then I thought about like if you're an agent and like pineapple is just such an unwieldy word to say. I'm sure they get so frustrating to like be yelling out orders and trying to just pineapple.
I mean, but maybe maybe you're a frustrating agent to work with. You stay above the law and they're trying to not, you know, and so that's just, I don't know, something. I'm making stuff up, but
Yeah, I mean,
could work.
There's work here. But if I had to pick one, I think I'd actually go with pumpkin because for a similar thing that just makes me chuckle.
Yeah.
That's just a pet name. That's just a pet name.
I mean, similar, you know, I'll just go similar lines. I'll go honey. That's a kind of food. But then also it just sounds like if other agents, you know, had to call that out. I mean, I guess we're talking in the context of special agents or whatever, but they'd be like, hey, honey, come in. That just is a funny thing for them have to deal with on the outside world.
Yep.
But also good secret agent thing, because then people would think they're just talking to their wife. So if they're just civilians overhearing, no big deal. It's honey.
True.
AJ?
Freaking, I don't know, man. Pie. That's nice
Perfect.
and quick. It's, you know, they could be talking about numbers.
You could be sweetie pie.
Yeah,
You got
That's not
pumpkin,
food, though.
honey, and sweetie pie.
That's too far. That's too far. Because that's not a food, man. If I went,
It's a type of pie.
if I went,
Some pies
is
are
it a
sweet.
type of pie?
It depends. Just hasn't been made yet. Anything could be a pie. I mean, who's going to loot you?
It's so
enough.
true. Is there a
I'm
candy
just
called?
saying, if I went to like a diner, I was like, yo, I want a sweetie pie. They'd be like, what? What are you talking about?
It's just got like
Or
sweet tarts
or
in
they
it.
would be like, that's sad. This poor guy.
I'm sorry. Please leave.
I'm curious, Mark, if you have this situation happen too, but I had it happen recently. It's you tell a dad joke or something like that, or a pun or something that you find a little bit clever, and then realize that it's like in that person's line of business and they probably hear it all the time. I don't remember what it was, but I went through the Starbucks drive-through and they said, what's a good name for your order? And I said, Parker. And I said, I don't know if that's a good name, but it's something, or something along those lines.
I would have threw your order at you.
And in retrospect, it gave me a little chuckle, but they probably hear that all the time.
They probably heard it from the person right before you.
They probably did. And now I feel bad, but like... But at the same time,
it would have been
isn't
a
it kind
better
of a rite of
story if
passage,
they audibly groaned. If they're like, oh.
Yep. So there's that. All right, next question. Thrill House asks, with The Last of Us coming out, what's your favorite video game, movie / TV show, not including Pokemon? I have a soft spot for the horribly great Street Fighter movie.
Sonic X.
Oh,
or Kirby.
it's a good one.
But probably Sonic X, because I can remember more from Sonic X than Kirby.
I forgot about the Kirby anime.
Yeah.
It's a good show.
I've been thinking about Arcane, which is a little cheating because I know nothing about League of Legends, but so I don't know how it is as an adaptation.
Speaking of Castlevania is a good show.
Oh,
I don't care about the game at all. That's why it didn't come to mind. But the show's good.
Oh, well, this one kind of counts. I watched a little bit of Arcane, though. Yeah, it was good. I need to watch more of it. But similarly, don't care even a little bit about League of Legends. This one's kind of a cop-out, so maybe it counts, maybe not. But The Witcher, originally a book series, though. So, sort of counts, but who's to say? But in any case, very good, and have quite enjoyed it. Otherwise, though, I don't know that I've seen a whole lot that I would specifically count. Detective Pikachu would obviously be the obvious pick, but you said not including Pokemon, so it says not including Pokemon. I don't know if Detective Pikachu is
spinoffs.
Yeah.
It's still Pokemon.
Maybe.
Man, that's cheating.
It's still Pokemon. Yeah.
I will say too, what I'm excited for is, and bear with me here, the Tetris movie that's coming out.
I didn't know there was a Tetris
about the
movie.
legal drama around Tetris.
Oh,
that
doesn't count either.
That's a video game.
So it's like a biopic kind of thing, but
That's just a documentary.
Interesting.
I mean,
but it looks like it's like more of like it's a biographical film. So less of a like documentary, more of like a kind of.
I think it's kind of like a social, like the Social Network sort of movie.
Yeah.
Like based on true events, dramatized.
That's cool. Yeah. I mean, on this, what are you guys' thoughts on The Last of Us show happening? Okay, I'm just gonna say mine. Get them out of the way. I wish, just because it's silly, that I didn't have a chip on my shoulder about PlayStation first party stuff, but I sure do. And so it makes it hard for me.
This I like better. I mean, I didn't see it yet because why do I don't freaking watch HBO. I don't need HBO Max right now. But I'd rather watch The Last of Us than play The Last of Us, because even when you play The Last of Us, you're barely playing it. And I'm sure that in this medium, the story flows a lot better. So it's probably actually better. I don't know if gamers will ever admit that, but it's probably better.
I have no plans to watch it, mainly because I don't really just do spooky stuff well. I'm a little bit tired of Last of Us hype.
I thought you were going to say zombies.
That too. Oh yes, very tired of zombies. Oh, 100%. You've gone on that before, and I totally agree with you. So that as well. But I think there's so much talk about when people try to point to video games being pushed forward as a medium, there's so much hype around The Last of Us. And I got a little bit tired around that being the one thing that's people are pointing to. But I mean, it's also like people are saying it's great. I'm sure it's worth watching. I probably won't ever see it.
Yeah. I just also don't think that. I think gamers saying that gaming stories have become better is not saying anything at all. Because it's like, yay, like game developers are finally ripping off everybody else to bring stories that are actually good to a medium that I personally enjoy. So although I've never read a book or seen a movie that had a story like this, I'm experiencing a story like this, and now I think it's good, you know? I think The Last of Us, there's like the most special part about it is that it's a video game. The story itself is not all that innovative, and I think the fact that it's a video game holds that story back, you know. So it's like it's like this conflicting thing. It's like it's only special because it's a video game, but it being a video game makes the story worse.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I kind of wish that we as gamers would be able to kind of adapt the meaning of story in video games to what, you know, we've talked about here before but it's just like, what's the story that happens in my play experience of, you know, like Breath of the Wild or whatever, like things that happened and like, or your Pokemon that like, oh, this, you know, stories that come out of experiences within video games and that you kind of write yourself, as opposed to, you know, like, oh, this was a tense moment where I thought I was going to fall off this little cliff thing, but it's like, nope, super 100% scripted that in Uncharted at that exact spot, you're going to fall down. Like, that's just how it goes.
And in Uncharted specifically, they're going to tell you like, man, we sure fall a lot. I'm getting gravel in my pants.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so it's...
Yeah, I think peak game stories is going to be when game developers realize that what makes gaming special is the interactivity of it all, and they build the game around that and make it so that the stories can naturally happen in that way, rather than the player basically writing over the story that the game is trying to tell with their own experience. Like the that base thing shouldn't happen. I think that, like, obviously gaming's still young, so like maybe it'll get to that point where it's like, oh wait, there's something different about this medium and we should use it to tell stories that matter. Because like, I'm sure film at its like genesis was just like a bad like replica of literature, and I mean literature is just literature, so like, you know.
I mean, it feels kind of like if you were to read a book and you'd be like, this is the best book ever, but the book is just a screenplay, you know, where it's like it's written in the same like, and then George walks to the side of the that kind of a thing. It's like, sure, I mean, it might be great, it might be telling a great story, but it's not really using its medium in the best way that it could. I would suspect. So like this same thing, if it's great now, it could be even better. You know, probably.
Yeah. And I think the problem with games doing that, where like film and literature, it's easier to like translate it and just like it's impossible to like translate literature to film and not add something that wasn't already there, because like that's just how different they are. But with games, the thing that you add that wouldn't be there if it was just a movie is just more time of people walking around and doing nothing. So then that breaks up the story, and like, even if the story's good, it might be made worse because the player is not good at the game. So like you forget points, and you know, things happen out of order, and you hear certain things more than you should, and blah blah blah. So
what a silly time. Yep.
Yeah.
So there's that. Questions now from Discord. Rise Gang said, since AJ and I were in a little bit of a disagreement on stream about how good Kirby's Return to Dreamland was, the Wii version, I would like to know what you think makes a good classic style pre-Forgotten Land, plays like Superstar Kirby game. I know I'm biased to Kirby and usually look at every game with few criticisms, but what I enjoy for those 2D Kirby games is how well the copy abilities allow you to interact with the landscape. Example being High Jump Kirby, and a part of a level that would require you to use High Jump well to advance and find the collectible in the area.
I think
What do
it's
you guys think?
I think it's less about Kirby himself and more about what Kirby has to interact with, just like most other like long lasting series, right? Where it's like the first Kirby game is the most interesting that Kirby himself has been because it's new and there was nothing like that before. Now how you make Kirby more interesting is you change what is around Kirby to like push your understanding of how Kirby works. That means obviously stuff like new copy abilities because you get new enemies and new bosses and stuff like that. Different level design so that like challenges and sometimes recontextualizes your understanding of Kirby's base movement abilities. I think that the thing that makes a good Kirby game is when they're able to like use the level design and the enemies and the copy abilities to make the game have friction but still be approachable. And I think that Return to Dreamland specifically is kind of made worse in this way because it is not necessarily the level design or even the copy abilities, but the core conceit of the game, which to be fair, that was kind of like just the time and place of it all. The 4-player thing, I think, just actively makes the game worse. And like, even if you're like, okay, that makes the game worse, so I'm just going to play it by myself, then there's just nothing interesting about the game, you know? So that's why I think that it's not a good Kirby game. It's because it's not really doing anything to improve on the formula. It's just presenting the formula but with more players this time that make the formula worse.
Do you is this an experience where like in what way does the 4 players change the game? And so I mean other than just generally making it worse, but like there's some games where having more players makes something easier. There's other ones where it makes it more chaotic. That's what it is. It's like the problem of Kirby is already that it lacks friction, and the more players just removes even more of it. Right. So it's like because I think there's a nice thing to be said for like when more players makes something where, in some ways you could cheat the system and make it a little bit easier. Like, take Mario with multiplayer or whatever. Like there's some things you could do where like, oh, here we can, do this obstacle by doing this thing instead, like you take the fall, but throw me or whatever. Who cares, but they're also at the same time, it's like, it gets really chaotic playing with 4-player Mario. Right. Also, I think that's kind of nice sometimes.
I think with that example that you just gave, where it's like, oh, okay, we clear this jump by me picking you up and dying and throwing you over there. Like that part is fun. Like that is friction. That's like, okay, how are we going to approach this differently? Like, how are we going to use the fact that there's more of us to clear this game? It's just literally like in the most basic sense of like, okay, there's one enemy on the screen and there's 3 of us. Who's going to win? That's the like the bad side of it. And I think that Mario, like the 4-player Mario, like the new Super Mario Brothers formula, like that kind of works in its favor because you can kind of choose your own adventure in that way, where it's like, okay, do I want to make this like a chaotic situation of like where I'm just competing? I want to beat you. I want to get to the flagpole before you do. I want to get the stars before you do. And if I gotta jump on your head and kill you to get it, that's what I'm gonna do. Or you can do the thing of like, despite the fact that the way that the game is designed, it like is to allow you to facilitate that competitive experience. You kind of get in each other's way whether you want to or not. Figuring out how to win in spite of that is also fun,
exactly.
Kirby doesn't really have either of those things, I don't think. Return to Dreamland specifically.
Mark, do you have any thoughts on all this?
I think for myself, like, one, Kirby being frictionless doesn't really bother me as much. Like that's, I don't know. Like I don't mind when games are easy, and it's kind of like Kirby fits a nice spot where it's just like, I just turn my brain off and play a Kirby game. Which also, I haven't played Return to Dreamland specifically, but I think what makes a great Kirby game is that interactivity with the environment. But I think for me, like on the shallow end, oops, sorry, I just smashed my mic. On the shallow end, at the forefront is just how interesting it is to be Kirby. And I feel like what games have the success of each sequential game is usually kind of, for me, based on like how interesting and different and unique each ability becomes. So like the idea of like the first Kirby game, well, not the very first, but Kirby's Adventure, like he had fire. Now Kirby can breathe fire. Great. Like maybe the next one, it also adds like I can't think of an example, but like just having more unique copy abilities just makes Kirby more interesting to me. And I think Kirby 64 is also one I really enjoyed because you can like combine them, and that's really fun.
Right.
So that's kind of more of what I look for in a Kirby game. I also think that doesn't make them really stand the test of time as well if you can't like, if those copy abilities don't have a place to go, I guess.
Yeah.
I think that's also like kind of what I mean. That's why I like specifically don't say difficulty, because I don't think that Kirby needs to be hard to be good. I don't think Kirby in the Forgotten Land is hard. I just think that like Kirby in the Forgotten Land is interesting. So like there's like things that they present in the game's level design and in the enemies through the copy abilities and stuff like that. That's like, oh, that was a good idea. That was neat. But there's really none of that when they're just like, here's just Kirby, like you played the last 4 times in a row, but this time the thing that is different and new and supposed to be interesting actively makes the game less interesting to play. Is more so what I mean, like not just the base idea of like, this game is easy, so this game is bad. It's like, no, the thing that they made new for this game, the only thing it does is make it easier. So like it doesn't substitute the thing that makes Kirby like acceptable despite how easy it is with something of similar value, where it's like, I don't care that Kirby's easy usually because it's usually interesting, but if it's just easy, then that's like you know?
Yeah.
I think for me, like having not even played that many Kirby games, I wouldn't say like maybe 5 total, to be honest, and not to completion or anything. Just, you know, besides, the only one that I've like fully finished was Kirby in the Forgotten Land. And I think the things that make Kirby in the Forgotten Land good for me are things that, I mean, I love that it's in 3D, but don't matter really. You know, like it wouldn't have to be in 3D for any of those things to still apply to Kirby at large. So maybe some of these things do apply to certain Kirby other games that I haven't played yet, and I don't know. But I think enjoyable movement is probably a thing. I mean, like the floating's never going to be enjoyable. Like it's not meant to be, I don't think, because otherwise you'd stay up there too much. It's good for it to not be, so that you know, don't just fly over everything or whatever. So that, but I think just like there's been some games like where just sprinting is hard and kind of annoying as Kirby, and like if your default is to move, I mean, it's like it's the movement of Smash, which like you have to intentionally want to sprint, which in Smash makes sense because it's such a small playing field, you know. But in a platformer where you're like moving from left to right the whole game, then it doesn't make as much sense for it to be like annoying to move quickly when you want to. So that kind of thing. But also similarly, you know, in like the combat mechanics and stuff, like I think Star Allies did do a fairly good job, I think, of making some of the movement and stuff. You have like the sword ability or whatever. Feels pretty fun, you know? So that checks out. But then it fails on some of the other things. But like, so in general, like movement, I feel like for anything is important. Secrets being done interestingly, I think, is also important. And like, especially with Kirby, you've got copy abilities and stuff. Oftentimes it feels like you can just, it's just like, oh, here's a copy ability. I don't know why I'd want that specifically. And then like 3 steps later, you're like, well, okay, there was fire copy ability and there's some obvious grass. I'll burn the grass, get a puzzle piece. You know, here we go. As opposed to like Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, the collectibles are legitimately hard to find sometimes. Like there's some obvious ones, but like the number of times that
hard to get.
Like, true. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So like, but it's not like that they're cryptic necessarily. It's just that you need to know what to look for and kind of take the time to do it. And when you do, there's a decent amount of like, I see what you did kind of moments. And those are nice. So I feel like if you're going to have hidden things, secrets, whatever, like, try to facilitate that kind of feeling. And again, that's not 2D or 3D specific. That's just in general to do that. And then there was the last thing I was going to say, but I don't remember what it was. So we'll go with those as the main things. Yeah, I think that kind of stuff, I feel like kind of facilitates a lot of the rest of it. It's just like, if it's fun to move around and, I think it was just that, like, using Kirby 64 as an example, I think it's great that you can combine moves and stuff, but it does feel like, having gone back to play it, like, I hadn't played it as a kid, so I played it on Switch for the first time, and it is very slow. And like the boomerang where you throw a little piece of yourself for some reason, it's like woo, 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 woo. That's not a boomerang, that's scary. I don't know, because it's a piece of yourself, which is weird. So I think, like, great ideas and stuff, but I feel like at the same time, all things considered, we're in a good direction going for it. So I think the multiplayer stuff, like you said, AJ, too, like, it striking a fine line where it's it doesn't make it just a lot easier to have more people in there. There was some game, I don't remember what it's called, but it's one where it's like kind of a puzzle game where you can have like up to 8 players play Pico Park. The more friction that you have in that, the more fun it is, because it gets harder with more people. Right. So like, I had a friend that played it with the maximum number of players, 8 players, some of whom were inebriated. So it was this fun experience where like everything became hard and frustrating, but kind of in a like overcooked kind of way that like for some people is sometimes fun. For example, your wife, Mark. Whereas that was specifically because she talked about it on a podcast. I don't know.
Check it out. 11.5 minutes.
Check out the podcast.
Yeah. Hey, there you go.
Look at the description.
But yeah, we played that same game with her, and it was just me and Ashley and her, and none of us were inebriated or anything like that. And it was like kind of boring because it was just easy with the 3 of us. Like you can do it with as few as maybe 1 player or 2 players or something like that, but there wasn't the like chaos kind of in there. So I feel like in multiplayer stuff, there's a little bit of that should be there, where it's like, all right, we're all going to work together. And like, you have to talk about working together to be able to work together, as opposed to just like basically each playing it by yourselves together.
Right. That said, I do think that, like, at least for me personally, if there's multiplayer in a game, like, you can make that fun. I just think that, like, specifically for the conversation that Rise is referencing, he was like saying that it's his favorite Kirby game, right? And I'm like, I think that it's not that great. So like, removing the whole gimmick of it for people that like don't specifically have people that want to play Kirby Returning Dreamland, or that just straight up they don't know to play games with or whatever, right? Removing that feature, which was the whole gimmick for the game. It's like, now Kirby's 4 players, isn't that neat? It's a bad move and makes the game even less like a peak Kirby game, you know?
Yeah. For what it's worth, I think this might be the game that I saved my $60 for, just because, like, yeah, I am curious to find out how it is in 4-player, because we have that situation come up pretty often, and it's pretty casual kind of playing too. Right. So like, even the mini games that are in there could be fun ones for us to play together. I don't really know. The last thing I was going to say about Forgotten Lands, now that I remember as well, is that I think a thing that was nice about it is basically difficulty options baked into it, where I mean, there just are difficulty options, but even aside from those, you can upgrade your weapons, but you can also just not upgrade your weapons or downgrade your weapons, and decide in the same way that you're like in Breath of the Wild, you'll do, beating a gold Lionel with only sticks or something, whatever, same kind of thing. You can just decide to downgrade your weapon a little bit. If a certain boss is too easy, you can go back and do a challenge run and try to beat him.
Regular Kirby, like,
yeah,
I want to make this
exactly.
boss without a copy ability.
And so that's just like, it's fun options that, you can just choose however you want to, approach those kinds of things, and that's nice. That's my Kirby thoughts.
Nice.
Rise goes on to say, I've been most tricked multiple times by fake leaks for Guilty Gear DLC characters. Artists got real good at replicating that style, the images for new characters, and put on the right fake Twitter accounts. Got me. Yep.
Fair enough. I can see that. That seems like a pretty like easy to replicate style.
RP asked, will AJ keep the waifus alive or will he throw it in his first try?
We'll see, man.
I don't know what
Megan
this
asked,
is about, but it seems problematic.
What?
I'm guessing Fire Emblem.
I don't know what's going on.
It's a Pokemon.
Yeah, Pokemon.
Very good.
No, but I think that I'll probably do better in Fire Emblem than I usually do in Pokemon, ironically, because like Pokemon, I know. So like I will get complacent and I'll like read chat and not really pay attention and mash the go button. But Fire Emblem, I don't know that well. So I have to like actively think like, okay, I need to go here and do that and blah, blah, blah. It's like harder to go on autopilot because I don't know what autopilot looks like in that game.
Yeah.
So that's my hypothesis. We'll see if it comes to fruition.
Makes sense.
Very nice.
Yep. Mega Man asks, what's the best way to cook a leek?
With a duck, apparently.
With a side of Surfetched. Yeah.
Smoke it out.
There you go. Have you guys ever cooked leek?
No, absolutely
I
not.
don't know that I've ever eaten leek.
Is a leek also known as something else? I'm trying. Maybe it's not. Like, is a leek just a green onion?
I just know it's an onion's cousin, man. That's all I know. That they're like friends or something. Alec's not here for this, but Alec would know.
They are different, but they look and taste similar, but there are key differences between the two.
Okay.
It's very mad about it.
I'm sorry, I mistook you.
Yeah, leeks are long and straight, and onions are round and small. That's the only difference.
Also, leaks are information given before.
It's true. Full circle.
GK Dope-esque said, what method do you use to keep up with current events? Twitter, news sites, newsletters, etc. Looking for some ideas other than news from traditional papers on their sites.
Twitter, YouTube, sometimes my phone, like the Apple News or whatever that is. But usually Twitter's probably the first place that I find out most news, which is like now sad and depressing because it's dying a slow death.
True.
One thing I do is there's an app, and I think it's also like you can get just an email, but called Feedly, Feedly,
Yep.
and you like subscribe to like any site
RSS
you want,
feeds.
and yeah, and so that it's a nice like just gives you every headline in a stack, and you can just pick out the ones you want to read.
That's nice. I don't. No, I mean, basically, yeah, I think I'll see stuff on Twitter more often than not. And that's probably about it. Yeah, I don't really go out of my way looking for new stuff. And in some ways I feel bad about that. But there's also, it depends because sometimes I don't. So yeah, I feel like if it's something that's generally, if it's the kind of thing that I would want to have known about, it'll show up on Twitter. So
I think most things for me, like, it's usually a combination of Twitter, Google, and probably YouTube, or it's like I'll see it on Twitter first, and then I'll look on Google to see if I can get more information. And if Google specifically doesn't take me anywhere, like a better like news site or whatever, it'll probably take me to YouTube, and YouTube will have somebody explain it better or give more context or show the thing of whatever the newsworthy thing is. That's my process usually.
Yeah, that checks out. And lastly, Chronically Cal asked, acknowledging that super tropey characters might not be the best, if you had to choose one, what's your favorite character trope?
I mean, I don't think
I would love
don't
to
think-
have like a list or something to be because like not a lot's coming to mind off the top of my head.
Just Google character tropes.
I don't think I had like a, I don't think I have one that comes to mind now, but as a kid I really liked the like just super like strong kid, you know? Like that was hype for me, like the Goten, the Gohan, you know, freaking like Ash, which Ash is a bad example because he's just bad a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that's like the only trope that like ever in my whole life. Which granted, maybe that's because like that was before I was like actively aware of tropes and they annoyed me. So maybe that's why. But I don't think there is a specific trope that I like now.
Yeah.
I think one that I think of is like the kind of the I can't think of like a good summation of this, but like kind of just the lone stranger that walks into town and
The Aragorn.
yeah, a Strider.
Yeah.
Like someone gives him crap and then something crazy happens.
He
It's like
just
like
freaking-
the Mandalorian.
Oh,
What was
yeah,
that?
yeah.
Like Mandalorian, Samus, I think is a good example of this.
Yeah.
Who else? I don't know. Just like kind of a gunslinger type. I think they're really cool.
Joel from The Last of Us.
There you go. Yeah.
I'm having a hard time. I looked at a list and there were some decent ones on there. And I don't know. I'm trying to think of like shows that, you know what? I'm going to go with the like trusty sidekick. That's like, I'm thinking of The Witcher specifically and the character of what is his name? Have either of you watched The Witcher?
No, absolutely not.
It's real good. Either way, he has like a sidekicky sort of guy, but he's also down to earth kind of, and I can't explain it very well, which means probably it's not a trope. Probably it's a subversion of trope anyway. But he's like a bard kind of guy, and like seems like a typical bard, but then also has like some extra layers behind him and stuff. I mean, this doesn't count, but the original thing I was going to say too is like a person that you kind of think you know them, and then there's some extra stuff behind them. You know, like there's
That's
a
just
layer
storytelling,
of depth.
eh? That's
It
just
is. I know. I
storytelling,
can't think of a good one, but like just in moments in shows like that or movies or whatever, that's just always a nice thing where it's like, oh, they're just a goofy little guy, like Sean in Psych. You know, he's goofy for 3 whole seasons, and then something serious happens, and then it's like, oh, he's a real person, and this is just like kind of a friend he's putting on, or like a Chandler situation. You know, okay, it's a trope. I'm going to say it's a trope. It's a silly person that has some depth behind
Dark
them.
past.
Yes, Gear. Yes. Thank you, Cal. Yes, Gear is great. And with that, I'm going to end with a tangent of sorts. I brought these chips up here that I'm mad at. What it is. So it's for audio listeners, it's a new flavor of Doritos, sweet and tangy barbecue. And I'm mad because these have hit the nail in the coffin for the best flavored chip, which is the sweet and spicy chili.
What, you're saying that those are better?
I'm saying that like the sweet spicy chili ones are better, but I've seen them disappearing from store shelves, and they're purple, and now the purple bags are the Flamas ones, and then this color is the color that used to be, or that in Europe is the color for sweet and spicy chili, is this kind of blackish grayish sort of color. And so the fact that they didn't just change its color to be this one, and this one's now called sweet and tangy, means like the other one's just going away. Like, because its color's taken, its verbiage is kind of taken,
Are those
and
even
it's color
good?
from the other place. They're okay. They're fine. This bag is
I don't
new,
think I would
but
ever see barbecue Doritos and be like, yeah, I'm gonna get those.
I just got it for the research, honestly. Like they're not bad.
The bag color.
Yeah, I wanted to know, like, did they just fully rename it? And this is the same flavor. You know what I mean? Because you could do that if you want, but it's not. And I think the best Doritos are gone, and so is the best podcast in the whole land. Is this one? We're finishing it up.
Like, comment, subscribe, click annotations, click the links in the description. Check out Mark's podcast.
Hey.
Bye
Thanks.
bye.
11.5 minutes. Bye.
Bye.